All right, for this, we're gonna go over the salt technique with watercolor painting, okay? So salt is used with watercolor. How you use it is you sprinkle salt, and I emphasize that word sprinkle because it means not a whole lot, right? Sprinkle that salt onto an already painted portion of of your project. Okay? It creates texture. It also creates some other cool effects that I'll be able to show you there. Okay? So just like its definition, you need to paint or have an already painted portion of your project. It could be wet on dry, it could be wet on wet, but the idea is that you need to then use kind of just this salt, and this salt is just table salt, right? Salt that you probably have in your pantry at home. And you need to sprinkle this on a wet portion of your paper. Okay, so I'm gonna take just a tiny little pinch, and I'm going to sprinkle that salt on. And you can see almost that color kind of attracts to that salt, and as it dries, it almost pushes it away. Think about it as like a chemical reaction with kind of the paint as it's drying to create kind of these interesting effects that you otherwise wouldn't be able to get just with your paintbrush. Okay? Now, I emphasize one right there, right? I can do wet on wet too, where I take some paint, or take some water, maybe I drop in some different color paints here. Okay. And then maybe I want to sprinkle over the entire portion and see what happens. Thinking about different samples for this is seeing what this salt looks like with different colors, blues, reds, greens, but also maybe salt just on one end, maybe salt all over, maybe just a few droplets, maybe a lot. You know, I say sprinkle, but maybe putting a lot on one area and figuring out what that looks like after it dries is a big thing that you can think about as you're doing these different samples. If I bring in maybe a skill set card that's already been done, you can kind of see these different effects that kind of happen as we sprinkle some kind of different amounts of salt. A lot of salt down here, very little, maybe just around the edge, sprinkled around. After it's dry, you can either do one of two things. You can leave the salt on there, it'll almost bind and attach to it to create kind of an actual texture there. Or what you can do is actually wipe all that salt off, and you'll still get that look and feel of it, but you won't actually have those grains of salt on the top of your painting. So either or is fine. I think with your examples after they dry, you can see which one you might want to do and actually keep for your actual skill set card.